Hello, ladies and gentlemen, this is RommelTanker, and today I thought I'd talk to you guys about a very odd and interesting concept, and that is using the HE rounds of the RU-251 as a sort of quasi-armor piercing. So, this sounds like a bad idea, in theory, and in all fairness, there are some regards where it is very much a bad idea. When running calibrated shells, you lose roughly 77 millimeters of penetration when using your HE compared to your armor-piercing rounds, and as a result, it significantly lowers the pool of targets that you can penetrate with these rounds. However, I've noticed that in practice, there's not a whole lot that the armor-piercing rounds can penetrate that the HE rounds can penetrate as well, if that makes sense. Basically, what I mean, if the AP can't pen it, the HE can't pen it anyways, so you're not really losing a whole lot of performance using the HE rounds. The only round you really need to carry with you for actual penetration purposes is a couple spare heat rounds, which you can see I have 16 of them loaded in my RU-251. Now, you may be wondering to yourself, Rommel, what gave you this ridiculous idea of using HE as a quasi-AP? Well, the idea spawned out of a couple of different reasons. The first one being when I bought back my RU-251, because I had sold it in order to buy my PTA. When I had bought back my RU-251 and used the HE rounds, I had noticed that they had actually been dealing higher damage per shot, on average, than my AP rounds. And I don't just mean that in the sense that, yeah, they were dealing 15 or 20 extra damage. They were dealing 40 plus damage more than the AP. And the reason for this, I can only assume, is because of how on that particular day, because of how my RNG was. But I can only also assume that this is probably because the average damage of the shells is so much higher than that of the AP. So I went and I had this really odd idea. What if we used the HE as a quasi-AP? What if we completely forsook the idea of using the armor-piercing rounds of the RU-251 and basically went nub mode? We take a page out of the nub handbook that says HE does more damage. Well, after going through and playing probably 30 to 40 games using nothing but HE and heat rounds, I can most certainly say that the concept is extremely effective. Now, I feel the need to caveat this. It requires you know what you are doing. If you have no clue where to shoot these rounds and how much armor your targets have on average in various locations, completely forget using this idea, ever. Even if you think that you're a god tier player, if you do not know where the armor that you can pen is on vehicles, don't use this idea. You will do very terribly. You will not contribute to your team a whole lot at all. Now, with that out of the way, there are some basic rules you need to follow when you're trying to do this. The first one that you need to try to follow is you need to make sure that you flank vehicles constantly. Flanking is an extremely important part of playing the RU-251 in the first place. When you're trying to use these HE as a quasi-AP, you need to make sure you are flanking. You cannot engage vehicles head-on minus a very select few number of vehicles. Typically, other light tanks like yourself and the German tank destroyer lines. The Borsig, the Waffentrager, and the Sturm Emil. Now, another issue that you need to remember to keep in mind is that you need to maintain map awareness. If you get flanked while doing this, buy a heavy or buy anything with more armor than what you can pen with those 112 millimeters of penetration, you need to bugger out as fast as you can. Because if you don't, you're going to get stomped in a DPM fight. Because while it may seem like you're increasing the DPM of the RU from something like 2,500 to almost 3,000, if not over, by using these HE rounds, that's if you're penetrating these shots. The problem is, you can't pen everything. And I would also like to point out, however, that even though these HE rounds will occasionally not penetrate things, what the AP doesn't pen or wouldn't have penned, the HE can actually still do splash damage to. So that's another reason that this concept is actually fairly effective, because if you're not penetrating, you're still dealing damage. Granted, it may not be as much as you want, but you're still dealing damage. Now, there are other rules you should probably try to follow. Don't get into gunfights with tanks that you know you can't pen, or tanks you think you can pen, because I guarantee you, you're going to lose the gunfight to them, even if it's something with a really atrocious reload like a KV-3. Unless you know how to get around the vehicle, flatten out your firing angles, so you can get nice flat 90-degree surfaces to fire on, you're going to lose a gunfight, because you're just going to keep splashing him, and he's going to reload and pound you. And if he's smart, he's going to use HE and do it that way. So, with all of this said, and at this point, most of this is just pointless rambling, but with all of this said, I would encourage the players who are interested in trying this concept to try the concept once or twice. Try to use a similar loadout to what I'm using here on the screen. So 25 HE, 16 heat, calibrated shells, gun laying drive, vertical stabilizer, the equipment that reduces the chances of being hit in the ammunition rack. And this sounds like something that doesn't seem very important. It's actually very important, because the RU-251 has a very weak ammunition rack. The bonus HP equipment, the coated optics equipment, and the engine accelerator. So, with this in mind, I hope y'all had a very interesting, hopefully interesting time listening to this video, and I will see you all on the battlefield, and have a wonderful day.